So, Apple just wrapped up its Time Flies event where the company announced a handful of new products and perhaps most notably some new services. I'm Jason Cipriani with Jason Perlow. This is Jason Squared. And today we have a special guest, ZDNet's editor in chief, Larry Dignan. Thanks for joining us, Larry. Larry, so we'll start with you. They announced some Apple Watches today. What'd you think?
I came into this event, I was sort of thinking it wasn't going to be a whole lot. I was thinking it was like watching a trailer before a blockbuster movie, as we're all waiting
Right.
for the iPhone.
Yeah.
But gotta admit, I came away kind of impressed. The specs were good and all that good stuff, but just the business strategy is the thing I'm most interested in at this point. But let's just do the products first. So the Apple Watch Series 6 looks like a fine upgrade. They have, to me, all the innovation almost looked like it was in the watch bands, where these things just kind of slip over. And they really pushed the health message, which I think is interesting. But like I'm a Garmin person, so I already have pulse ox and a lot of the things they were talking about.
Right.
So that was interesting. But from a business perspective, like a business model, I think the iPhone or Apple Watch SE was pretty smart, right? Because they lowered the price points like 279. It's basically the Series 5 for the most part.
Right.
And now they have that family sharing app where you're sort of like, maybe you buy one, maybe everybody gets an Apple Watch for Christmas, right? So you sort of see where they're going with it. iPads, very interesting too, because the iPad Air got a nice upgrade. And so did the base iPad. So, I bought the iPad base model last year with a keyboard and all that. And I'm already looking at the new ones thinking, maybe I'll just swap it out, right?
Yeah,
Bought the iPad
$329.
Pro, you're kind of looking at this and going, what'd I do that for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the main thing, Jason, Perlo. The other thing that really stuck out for me was just the services, right? Because Apple is almost starting to look like a cable company, where they came out with Apple One, you got your individual, your family, your premier plan, and you're just going to wind up buying a device from Apple and paying them $100 a month over time, right? And right now that's kind of capped at $30 a month, but we've all seen this movie before. Those services go up more and more. And then the biggest thing that I thought was interesting was the Apple Fitness Plus, where
That's a huge service.
That's a huge service. It connects your iPad's iPhone and Apple Watch for the data. And, I wasn't watching Peloton shares, that closely, but let's just say I imagine the shares are down because it's
if I was LA Fitness now or one of those other companies, I would be scared out of my mind.
Yeah, well, they're all screwed anyway.
Right.
But Peloton's the one. They're screwed by Peloton.
Right.
Now the question is, can Apple screw Peloton? And
I
that's
mean-
kind of what it is. So from a business strategy perspective, you got good products, you got interesting business strategy. So it basically, it outperformed what I had expected, put it that way.
Yeah, Perlo, what stood out to you?
To me, honestly, this is the really big beginning of the services play, right? I mean, the watch itself, they didn't make any major aesthetic changes to the watch. They added some bill of materials improvements in the components on this SPO2 sensor, software changes. For me, that's enough to buy a Series 6, but I was expecting more aesthetic improvements to the actual hardware. But that's fine. The real big deal is clearly the Fitness Plus service. That is going to give them the edge over all their competitors in this space. I don't see how Fitbit and Google can compete with something like that. Once you've gamified it, once you've added this to a services portfolio, and look, let's take a look at Apple One, because I think that is honestly the most important product Apple's introducing this year. Forget all the hardware, forget all the toys. This is how they're going to expand their customer base. This is how they're going to acquire new customers, not necessarily. One is retain new existing customers, right? But also acquire new people into the Apple fold that weren't Apple customers before. You have all these services. The family plan of the $29, I think, is an excellent deal. Was it the Pro plan, the upper end plan? Premier, right, which has multiple users attached to it and all that kind of stuff, maximum amount of storage. They're going to keep adding more and more services to this as they go on. they're trying to essentially develop the same type of a services model as Amazon, right? I mean, I noticed they didn't have iTunes premium, video content added on top of it, or they didn't have iBooks or any of those things. But there's no reason why they can't continue to add those to these services as time goes on. I think that this is their most important business play that they could have possibly made for the next 5 years. Is the service, and understand, $30 sounds like a lot of money, but if you say you're already an Apple Card customer, you are generating a lot of cash just sitting around that credit card, just using that for your normal purchases.
Yeah.
All they need to do is had automatic debit from your Apple Cash every month to pay for the damn thing. You've never even seen the money going in and out the door, right?
Yeah, you're basically getting Apple One for free just by using your Apple Card and accruing the daily cash balance. It's a really smart way to do it.
Yeah. As far as the iPads, yeah, I'm kind of pissed that I spent I don't know, $1,100 on a nice iPad Pro. It was in January or February. I'm already looking at saying, well, you know what? I think I want to replace it, and I want to go with an iPad Air instead. So already putting those up for sale. My wife's basic iPad is probably going up for sale. It's going to a relative or something for a gift, something like that.
Yeah.
Look, these were long anticipated improvements. There's a bunch of products I would have liked to have seen at this event. I would have liked to see the new Apple TV. I think that's probably coming. We want to see the AirTags, a couple of these other things. I think they're going to reserve those as extras for the next event, probably next month with the iPhone. But all in all, I think this was a productive event for them. They had a lot of good products to show. They went through a lot of stuff in a very short time. One process.
One area where I think they missed, though, is the pricing of the Apple Watch SE at $279.
Yeah.
And I know, Larry, you said that is a good pricing. It is great for what you're getting, but they kept the Series 3 on at $199. And I would have liked to see the Series 3 just disappear out of the lineup and the Apple Watch SE fill that $199 spot, whether they had to use some sort of plastic housing for it to hit that price point or whatever. And the main reason is, in the keynote, they said that the family setup, which is their kid-friendly, here's an Apple Watch, now I can track you, you don't need a phone, service only works with Apple Watch Series 4 or newer. So if you want to use it, you cannot pay $199 for the Apple Watch Series 3 and sign your kids up for that service at all. You have to pay $279 at a minimum for a watch that goes on your little kid's wrist, which I'm not very comfortable with spending that much money on an Apple Watch for my kid. $199, maybe, but $279. Well, and that's not even the G or the cellular version.
I think they're just trying to get some inertia before Christmas. I think that we'll probably see that SE go to $229. They probably have a lot of inventory of the Series 3 left that they want to blow through. They'll probably incentivize that a little bit. Something maybe they'll go to $179 on that just to get rid of them. But I think that this is just a temporary pricing.
I would hope so. I think it's a little too high, especially if you're going to get the cellular model for a kid.
I agree.
That $279 price point, I was kind of looking at it, and where you see, Apple Watch, I was basically seeing Series 5 instead of SE.
Sure. No. Yeah, and that makes sense.
But yeah, you're right. From a product naming perspective, if it's going to be the SE, it should be cheaper.
It should be the bottom line.
Yeah.
One thing that stuck out for me, as you're talking about the family sharing plan, I looked at that, and then I look at my own kids' behavior, and I'm wondering, what is the maximum age for that? Because I was joking on IM, right? Like, as that event happened, I was like, oh wow, it's like a probation ankle bracelet. It's
you're on house arrest.
I can track your little ass all over the place, no matter what you're doing, right?
But
that's going to work till you're about 13.
Yeah.
And then
I live in Florida, dude. We have a lot of septa and octogenarians that we want to keep track of in Boynton Beach and stuff. So my mother-in-law, who's 82, she doesn't own an iPhone. So I could easily put her on family plan and then she gets all her other fall monitoring, all those other things that she needs.
Maybe it's a barbell, right? It's little kids and really old kids. But I think that could be, but I did look at that and I wonder, I was kind of like, wow, okay, so this is a lot of kid tracking.
Sure.
And, from the company that's, all about privacy, right? So, and it's privacy within the family. but some parents go crazy with that stuff, right?
They do.
So I look at it and I kind of see that it's going to cause a little tension. Um,
Yeah. Well, if you set up a family sharing on any Apple iOS device, the Find My app automatically starts tracking location of each other. So this is
Yep.
just an extension of that. But yeah, to your point, it could get a little out of hand. And when I saw it, the first thing I thought of was my 10-year-old who is going to start joining different baseball teams and going around. And I may not be able to be at practice with him at all the time. And he's been asking for a phone, and that's just too much for him. And immediately I thought this is perfect, this is great. And then the price point came out, and it kind of took a step back from it. But as far as price point goes for the Apple One Premier, Jason Perlow and I were talking earlier this week privately about what would we pay for Apple One, and I said $30. I would pay $30 for 2 terabytes of storage, Apple TV Plus, and Apple Music with the family plan, plus all the other services, because that's what I pay now. I don't want to increase what I'm paying, and that's exactly what they priced it at. So for me, it's priced exactly where it needs to be, especially with the Apple TV Plus subscription, your promo subscription expiring sometime this month, and I was going to start paying $5 anyways. I think it's right on.
and you have such a large installed base, they don't
Yeah.
have to charge a whole lot.
No.
No.
And then you throw
Right.
in Fitness Plus. I don't use News Plus ever, so I don't care about
Right.
that. I don't remember what else was included with it, but
Well,
it has
I think it'll be a lot like Amazon Prime,
right.
right? So Amazon Prime, I get a bunch of stuff. At the end of the day, it's shipping and video. I don't even know what the other things are.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same thing for Apple. It's going to be like, all right, so this is storage. And depending on who you are, it's either going to be the fitness thing or maybe the news thing or whatever it is, right? But it'll be 2 out of those 5 or 6 things they're including.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And it's a perfect little bundle, I think, for all of their users. It's interesting that it's not launching everywhere, though. Premiere was limited to select countries, and I didn't get to see a list of which ones they were.
Yeah, it was, I think it was Europe, UK, or Europe, US, and maybe Australia. But yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't a full global rollout by any stretch.
Yeah.
But it's pretty interesting. But for me, I mean, this just kind of shows what Apple is like. The innovation is really about the business model, the services, and you're offering a value, but you're also making a ton of dough too. And it's just a fascinating balancing act to watch.
Yeah, it really is. And the iPads, the iPad Air, Perlo, I feel for you for having bought an iPad Pro.
Oh
The
man,
iPad Air,
I'm already looking to get rid of it. Yeah,
the new colors. It has a 10.9-inch display, so I'm a little iffy. I prefer the bigger 12.9-inch iPad Pro.
I like the big screen, but I could live without it for a year or so until they get a new.
I do wonder how the Touch ID thing is going to perform with that top button.
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen them move the fingerprint sensor out of the home button. It's
Well,
gonna be,
I know that I've seen it. I mean, I try out all these Android devices, and
Sure.
sometimes they put them on the side. Like Motorola the Motorola 5G One has it on the side. I can never quite get that right though, right? So I don't know hardware wise beyond that home button. I haven't really seen many vendors get it right.
Yeah.
Without moving it into the screen, and even that's a
Yeah.
little wonky from time to time. So I'll be very curious to see. I don't know if I'd rush out and be the Touch ID button guinea pig at the top. But
we may
see how
get
it
it
goes.
we might get it in the iPhone 12 anyway, for all we know.
oh, that would be a
Maybe.
tight turnaround for them to implement that.
Yeah.
It would be ideal, especially now with face masks being so common. But it would be a tight turnaround for them to make that change. From what rumors I've seen, that
I cannot tell you how many times I've been out in public and I want to Apple Pay something and I'm wearing a mask and I'm pointing and you forget at this point now you're wearing a mask because it's starting to become so routine, and then you're like, it doesn't sense, and then you're like, oh crap, I got to hit the passcode to pay. It would be better, frankly, just to have the Touch ID as an alternative authentication mechanism.
agree with you 100%. And I agree with you too, Larry. I'm testing the Microsoft Surface Duo right now, and it has the side fingerprint thing. And no matter how many times I register it, re-register it, it just doesn't always work. You have to sit there and fiddle with it. So it'll be interesting to see what Apple's implementation is like. 'Cause this is the first time they've tried it.
Well, it is what Apple does, right? Like a lot of the features that Apple rolls out, you've seen elsewhere before. It's just been a little kludgy. And then they sort of make it much easier to use, right? So
Yeah.
I totally expect that with foldable devices, right? Apple will be the one to sort of, make them sort of mainstream, right? And I think that's going to be interesting to watch for the Touch ID, because it might point the way forward for a lot of things. Because I'm not a big fan of the fingerprint in the screen.
Me either.
They're just,
No, it's smudgy. I don't like it.
Screen cover on it. It just gets clunky.
Perlo, did you have something?
Yeah, it's a smudge fest. I've played with it on all the different Chinese phones, whether it's Huawei or some of the others that are out there. And yeah, I mean, it works. Don't get me wrong, it works. But whenever if that's an action that we use all the time for authentication, and it just gets your screen completely smudged up the more that you keep touching it in that spot. It's yucky after a while. So.
Yeah, it can get real kludgy, I think, as Larry said. So, Larry, any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, overall, I thought it was a good event. I thought it was a little weird that they would do it in like 2 installments with iPhone next month. But, when you look at the time and you're kind of like, wow, that just took an hour, that's fine.
It was
recent keynotes. I've been watching the clock. I'm like, oh my God, I've been sitting down for 2 hours straight. Shoot me.
yeah.
So yeah, overall, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you there. What about you, Perlo? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I happen to like this format. I think, even when life gets back to quote unquote normal, I think they should always do it this way. In digestible, snackable amounts of 1 hour, rollouts. Because we don't have to worry about people doing the applauses and crap, I mean, yeah, you know what, they're still going to throw their shade at Google during, when they're talking about the iPad, but, we move on pretty quickly. We don't have, people snickering and laughing for 5 minutes while they get to the next thing. So I think that they've got it at a pace where they've got it timed, it's edited, it's ready to go, and bang, we get all the information that we need. And I think that's really a preferable way to do these things. Other vendors should take note.
Yep, my biggest gripe with events being done like this is they cram a lot of information into a short amount of time, and it's hard to keep up with, especially when you're having to work and write articles and do that throughout the event. There's so much information. Those applause breaks and laughing and snickering usually are that time when you kind of catch up and can catch your breath. And looking forward to next month's event with the iPhone 12, where we expect not only iPhone but possibly AirTags and a new HomePod and Apple tags and Mac OS Big Sur, as well as Apple Silicon Macs. That's going to be a lot of information crammed into maybe a 2-hour event. It's going to be a lot to keep up with. But it's also
did they say when iOS was and iPad OS was coming out?
Tomorrow, yeah, iOS 14, iPad OS 14, as well as watchOS 7 all launch tomorrow. There's
and we said in the previous installment that this is going to be one of the first instances where we're going to get the OS before we get the hardware updates. So people will have a chance to play with their iPhone 11, for a couple of months on iOS 14 before the iPhone 12 comes out. And we don't know what the ship lag is going to be on some of these models. Some of these may not even arrive December, January, because of whatever, shipping delays they have and component delays. So it'll be interesting to see how we live with this for a couple of months while it's out.
It's for a lot of people, it's going to be the first time they've used a new OS on their older phone, which is good and bad. Well, yeah, like you said, we'll see how it plays out. And next month is going to play out even weirder, I'm sure. Like I was saying, there's going to be a lot of information in a short amount of time. A lot of products expected next month from Apple, starting with the iPhone 12. Well, thanks again for joining us, Larry. It was great to have you on. We really appreciate it.
Awesome.
I'm Jason Cipriani.
And I'm Jason Perlo.
And this is Jason Squared. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to check out more of our work at zdnet.com.